Today I'll be installing the Ricochet Off Road skid protection. It comes in two levels, the aluminum, and then they have an overlay that's UHMW. And it's a really nice system. It's not as thick as your half-inch traditional skid plates. You have a 3/16 aluminum, which is really strong, and that's going to stiffen up your chassis. And then you have the 1/4 inch UHMW, which gives you your abrasion protection. And it does reutilize the side plates, but the aluminum goes over the stock side UHMW below that. But basically, this center section of the OEM gets eliminated. So these two pieces get reused. Just to show you the difference in thickness, I have the RMAX OEM front dash plate, and get a better view here. You can see the thickness versus the Ricochet, and this thing is solid. I mean, you could almost go with this alone and not worry about it denting. I mean, this protected the RMAX fine, but it dented. And although this might gouge, I don't think it's going to dent due to the thickness. And once again, that's why you have the option for the thinner UHMW overlay. They have instructions where all the hardware goes. So what I'm doing is I'm taking a magic marker and I'm marking those hardware specs at the various holes. And then they have stickers on the top side for the hardware. I'm just transposing that to the part. Sun's killing me here. Let's see if I can get some shade. There you go. You can see where I'm marking it with the shade. So it'll make it a lot easier, you know, versus trying to look at the paper manual. And they have a bag of parts, hardware parts for each panel. And then obviously, like these parts here, it shares mounting points with those larger holes. And those rib nuts are for dedicated to mount the plastic skid part. How much I love to use kitty litter containers to help me hold things up. Those are my second pair of hands. Come on, focus. So I got my two 10mm bolts with washers. And then there are 3 hangers. There's one here, one on the opposing side, and one in the middle back there. That bracket for the differential kind of gets in the way, so you have to kind of finagle it. That's the driver's side. And then let me get to the passenger side here. Here's the passenger side hanger. And then it's easier just to show you from the top. That's the middle hanger. Passenger side, and this is probably the hardest part of doing the front, is figuring out how the plastic and the front skid interact. So you want the plastic on the inside on this piece right here, but you want it outside there's a hole there, which doesn't quite line up for me right now. I might just leave it alone or enlarge that hole, but that's how you have to have it. You got to remove this bolt, get everything lined up. So the middle skid plate, I have that installed. I have my common mount here, and there's a silver spacer, and then there's a longer silver spacer on this one, and then over here and over here there are hangers. You can see them right there. Just goes over the frame, just like on the front. And then there's before you even install this, you have to install U-channel nut certs or whatever, two on each side there. And I actually did that first because that needs to line up. So the one thing I really like is, you know, if I have to do my rear drive shaft service or my oil change, I don't have to drop this front piece, only that rear piece and the very back. So that's kind of nice. This engine plate was probably the easiest to install. You have your 3 common bolts there with spacers, and then one in the middle right there, and then hangers on each side. Engage the frame. The rear bash plate on uses the original mounting bolts there, and then there's a square bracket on each side. One thing I almost forgot to mention is this rear skid, it beefs up this whole rear diff area. I know the aftermarket makes a diff brace for underneath, which I don't know if you could install these skids if you have those installed, but the skids themselves, this being pretty thick and sturdy aluminum, it's going to help prevent some of the flex you get back here. Now, is it going to be as good as the brace kit? I'm not claiming that, but who knows? Okay, so these rock sliders / side covers, they're a little bit difficult. You want to get the side bolts started first. Before you even do that, you want to remove these 3 bolts back here and leave them out. Reason being is when you tighten these bolts up, it compresses it, and you can see that the plastic's shoved up, which is good because it eliminates that gap. And then it's a really tight fit. Makes the plastic hug the frame rail. So the driver's side is a little bit more difficult. There's a bolt up here. That bolt right there, it has nothing to thread into. And to me, it's not a big concern because of the angle. So it is what it is. But if you remember, you could put a U-nut before you installed it. But that's it. That's the whole aluminum skid. And now I'll install the plastics over top. A-arm guards. They're pretty simple to install. You have a mounting block here at the front, and then you also have one at the rear. On the other side, I had a problem with the front one clearing the weld, but I was able to squeeze it in. There's also a hole here that has a 3-bolt that goes to the top that they provide right here. I'm sorry. So from there to here, you have to enlarge that hole. I wasn't comfortable doing that. What I might do is install a nut cert and a smaller screw, but for now I just zip tied it, and that prevents us from hanging down. The other thing you need to do is, if you have the XDR, XTR has these plastic guards. You have to remove those. If you wanted to reuse them, you could trim them and reinstall them. They're kind of useless for bottom protection. As you can see, they're already eaten up a little bit. So this has good bottom protection. You know, initially I wasn't happy that I didn't have the plastic component that the main skids have, but these aren't spanning an open area. Like if it was spanning this open area, then I would want the plastic underneath. But I mean, this is small surface area, so it's not going to create much drag going over a rock. And they have a nice lip on each side, and in the back too, to where, you know, it's going to protect you from side obstacles. It doesn't need to go all the way to the top. That's your rear A-arm guards.